gentlemen, let's get this party started! Are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble!
Hi everyone, welcome to Live After J-Dub's live stream, and we are back with our wonderful ladies. Come on in, ladies.
Hello.
Hi Sherry. Hello. Hi Sherry.
Hello.
Hi Betty.
Hi Sherry, Stella.
Hi.
Hello. Hi
Hey.
Naomi.
Hey guys. Hi.
Hi Michelle.
And we'll see if Kate is able to join us. She was having some technical difficulties earlier.
It's quite convenient. She's still kind of on the screen.
Yeah.
Me too.
Exactly. So how are you all, girls? How's it been since the last fortnight, hey?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I've been
Good.
out all day. I'm feeling hot.
Yes, we had a warm one here, but you had really hot and humid too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not missed it.
Quite so humid. Yeah, you would hate it over here.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't like it.
Horrible. Yeah.
I tried the Gold Coast for a few years and it was just way too humid for me.
Yeah, it does wonders for the hair. Oh, hi, Tony.
Oh,
Hey Tony.
hello, Tony.
Hi.
And Carenza. Hello, honey. Nice to see you here in the chat. Oh, it's really great to be back again. Wasn't it a blast last time? I had so much fun last time.
So fun.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, it was really good. And it was nice to get to know each of you and hear a bit of your backgrounds and a bit of your story and have a space to just, do some girl talk. Oh,
Yeah.
So someone loves my T-shirt. Yes, I am.
Mentally certified as well.
I'm certified and I'm mentally diseased.
I love it.
Actually,
Only way to be.
only way to be. I'm quite proud of my apostasy. I think I'm really embracing and really digging the apostasy thing. I think it's great.
Mhm.
Well, you're wearing it well.
Embrace it.
Thank you.
It was nice to see you in the newspaper this morning, Sherry.
Yes,
That was a great article.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really good. And I have to say that reporter, Amy Fallon, she is a independent journalist, and she's written a lot about human rights issues, particularly for the last few years in Uganda. So she's like a real deal, international journalist, and she's just her attention to detail is staggering, and she really wants to make sure she gets the feel of the articles. So she was very wanted to make sure that she had all of the words right, so she kept coming back to make sure that she had the sense of it, and would it be right if I said it like this, and I really appreciated that. So it came across brilliantly. I was really happy with it. Yeah.
Love it.
It's a
I
really
posted
good read.
in my group.
Someone should link it in the comments.
Oh,
Yeah, we should.
I can use that maybe.
I think Sasha might do it, right?
Yeah, leave it to Sasha. Actually, no, I know he's showering, so let's not do that. I'll just do a little search. Oh, there. Okay.
Okay,
And here,
independent, capable lady.
multitasking. Oh, now hang on.
Yeah.
I've copied it. I don't know how to put it.
Oh, hello, Ben.
I don't know how to actually put it in the chat.
I was going to be impressed that you
You gotta learn.
What I'll do is I'll put it into the private chat, and Shane can work it out. So I don't know how to do the rest.
There you go.
All women independent.
Hi Ben. Hi Tony. Hi Carenza.
Hey Ben.
And Ben. Hey Ben. It's really nice to see
I can always
everybody.
count on my son to be one of the people watching. I told him
Yeah.
like
Moral
disinherited him
support.
if he didn't want.
I better message my daughter, do the same.
Uh-huh.
My child is
Pop her
right
back
here
up.
next to me. he's
Show us.
participating.
Oh, beautiful.
Too
Oh,
cute.
she's
Hey,
behaving.
we've got a
Is she a he? She?
He, Nacho.
Okay.
He.
Nacho.
He's a
Okay,
boy.
he's behaving. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I just
I was very
pop her
happy
back
that I
up.
just woke him up.
fair enough. We've got a question. I don't know. I'm just going to chuck it out there from Karenissa there. To all, how do you feel about, or how do you feel about wearing your apostate shirts out in public?
I love it.
I don't have one yet. I need to get
Yeah,
one.
I've designed one. It's on the way.
Oh, your
good.
one's great.
Yes, you should look up
Is it
Michelle's
a
one.
wild beast one?
Yes,
Sasha
I haven't
bought
got one yet either.
Haven't?
Yeah.
Oh, Bill, got to fix this. Sasha bought me one from Sarah Riches Hall, who is a ex-JW in WA, and she does amazing art. And she did one of the harlot on the Wild Beast.
Oh yeah.
And this was something I had to have. So, yes, I like wearing that one out. That's always a bit of fun. And what's the other one? I wore my Recovering from Religion one out and about today. So, yeah, I wear it.
Hi,
Wear
Jenna.
it, wear it. Make people...
Loud and proud.
Oh, there's
Oh,
Janice.
the Belchers.
Hi, Janice.
Yes. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, while we wait for Kate, shall we have a little bit of a natter about a few things? Because obviously the whole idea of this show is for us women to talk about our experiences as when we were in and our experiences out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and what it kind of means for us now to be a woman, and that whole journey and path that we're on. So to provoke a little bit of discussion, I have been fossicking around on the internets, and I've come across someone on Instagram, Evangelical Lessons, and this is obviously someone who was a former evangelical Christian, and she's left her religion, and she has some really pithy statements and comments. Here was one that jumped out to me. I no longer have to diminish myself to fit into the church's ideal of a submissive and silent woman. So for us, we had the whole submissive and silent as well. We had to have the meek and mild spirit, which I struggled with.
Me
And
too.
he's still struggling.
But we were pushed into that, right? We were pushed into that role, and that any expression that we made, it wasn't, unless it was glorifying Jehovah or it was adding to the respect of our husbands or our significant others, we couldn't really be ourselves. What does that bring out for you, that statement?
Fragile egos on the part of men, because I think that, and I don't mean it, I guess
No, I know.
like there was a lot of times where things were happening and these men were clearly incapable, and if they would just let women participate and help, it would have ran a lot better. And it was just, if you ever said anything, you would get pulled aside and told that you were not being submissive and that you should maybe read a scripture or two or something like that. But really that whole organisation would run a whole heap better if they just had input from women. Just on a basic level, it would run a lot better. But their egos are so fragile, and they're empowered by the scriptures and selectively quoting them, that if you do anything, you get in trouble. So it makes you smaller and smaller, and I guess this is something I find hard moving forward, is you just say it in your head, but you never say it out loud. And so I think sometimes you're just scared to voice your opinion because you're just so used to for me, it was 44 years just saying in my head, just going, oh, for God's sake, you know, I want to say this, but you just can't. And that's just, it's an abuse of human rights for a start. But,
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I remember
agree.
going out.
No, go,
I
Michelle.
just remember. I remember going
By the
out
way,
field
Kate is
service.
not- Kate is not coming back. Sorry.
Oh, she's
Oh,
not
she's
able
not.
to come back. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
tech
Kate.
problems. Yeah.
Hey,
she's not getting a
so just-
resurrection.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
She's been judged.
Interact via the comments. Tell us
Yeah.
what you think, Kate.
Okay.
Oh, sorry to
Ask
hear that. Michelle, though, what were you going to say about submissive and silent?
So I used to be in the Spanish congregation, which adds another level of machismo. But a lot of the ministerial servants and elders were from South America and places like that where they speak Spanish. And they would come here to New Zealand and be in charge of like the maps, and would have long-standing, long-serving, faithful sisters who would offer up their opinion, be like, I think it's actually better if we go this way around the cities, because, you know, we've lived here for so long and we understand it. And I remember one sister saying it to a brother, and just the look on his face was like, what are you doing? And he was one of my friends. It was the first time I saw him do that. And afterwards he was like, oh, it's so horrible. Like, I could never marry a woman like that. Like, blah, 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 and going off about how because she's not submitting to him in a place where he has less experience. I was just like, no, that's why we're only friends, buddy.
Michelle,
There's like
come on,
lots
Michelle.
of things.
Sorry, I have to warn everyone, I'm exceedingly tired tonight, and so I may not be filtering my thoughts before they come out. But Michelle,
Great.
I'm sorry, just having possession of a penis means that you know better than anyone that doesn't have a penis, right?
Obviously.
Obviously.
And
No
it's just
offense.
like tons of little experiences that diminish that for us and push us into the boxes,
That's
and
right.
suddenly we're this
That's
tiny little
Yeah.
version of
Mhm.
ourselves.
So true.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a weird experience in that I don't think I was outspoken much at all. I'm not from my own memory anyway, because I think I just didn't really. I sort of believed it. I sort of thought, oh well, I sort of just took my position. I'm not proud of that, but it is kind of what it was for me. And if I was going to try and find a silver lining, the one silver lining I would say is it's made me incredibly good at passive aggressive communication. Like, it's actually something I have to work on, because I think that was how I connect, like how I was able to, find my voice in that, which is not being too overtly, because that was not acceptable. So just being a little bit underhanded, using a lot of, maybe humor and, just sort of, trying to connect in another way, but yeah, never overtly and directly. So it's not a very nice quality, but I think that's how I ended up managing it.
And you know what I've been thinking about recently as well is how a lot of ex-JWs, when they're talking in the forums, calling the elders' wives, bitches and things like that. Oh, blah blah blah. They're just horrible. But it was almost their way to control their environment. This was the way that these women could control and manipulate this toxic environment that they were forced into. And that's what it is. Like, once you realize that, you realize, okay, no, like, it wasn't a nice thing to do, but this person's not a bitch. They're like a product of their environment. And sometimes they were, but but you know what I mean? Like, I've been thinking a lot of that. It's that.
You've actually hit the nail on the head there, Michelle, because I think that, well, what I'm coming to understand and believe now is that the teachings that we were forced to live under, the whole idea of the headship arrangement and women having to be submissive to men and men submissive to Christ, and that whole thing, it actually makes abuse possible. It it facilitates it. It's not, I'm not saying it condones it, although in some cases it does. But it makes it possible for it to happen and for it to thrive. So I get what I suppose I'm expanding on what you said about elderettes and elders' wives, just controlling what they can, and being the really, they were the social culture of the congregation. If you had an elder, either presiding overseer or coordinator, who was very rule-based, and the wife was like that, the atmosphere and the culture in the congregation was quite oppressive, and very judgmental. So yeah, it becomes the product of what the religion teaches, sadly, which is so, like, that's not what it's supposed to be like. Or it can be so much more liberating and so much more inclusive and so much more rewarding and satisfying if you open up past that. But we know that's not going to happen.
The other unfair thing, I think, too, was that in the headship arrangement was we had to be submissive to somebody that was real and you could see, and it was a visible submission that we had to display, whereas from that level upwards, it's invisible. Like they're submissive to Jesus and Jehovah and all that kind of thing. And yeah, that was a little bit unfair.
Yeah, you're right. And that part was highly, what's the word I'm looking for? Open to interpretation.
Exactly.
Right? Very open to interpretation. The poor woman can't do much there because it's man's interpretation anyhow. So, and that changes with the women, whatever. But yeah, you're right. That's a really good point, Kathy.
Yeah, I had also an experience growing up as a J-Dub, because I always speak what inside my head, even when I was young. And I have plenty of cousins and also friends that are males inside the congregation. And whenever I speak up, they will weaponize the scriptures to shut me down. So it's, even laughing out quite loudly, they don't like that. I mean, I'm just having fun. I'm just saying what's in my head, but they use the scriptures too.
You're right. I was fortunate in the first congregation I started pioneering with. There was a really lovely couple. He was the presiding overseer and she was the elder's wife, but they were Kiwi and they just had the best sense of humor. And they didn't take themselves too seriously. You're in. Yeah. I'll never forget, like, she used to play tricks on him during the meeting. So he'd be up on the platform. He was the watchtower conductor. And she'd be up the back of the hall going, like he'd said something wrong, and freaked him out completely. One time, she's at the back of the hall.
Me.
Saying, like, making out that his fly was undone, right? And he actually paused and sort of stopped and had this moment of horror of,
is it?
She was so good. She was just so much fun. And because of that, the congregation actually had quite a good spirit. It wasn't so judgmental. It was very inclusive, and it had a really good feel to it. But as soon as they left, it went with them.
Yeah.
I think another toxic thing as well is when, as males are growing up, they obviously start realising, you know, the headship arrangement and how boys are more important. One thing I found really disgusting, even when I was a Jehovah's Witness, was when you had like a 12 or a 13-year-old boy get baptised, and then he would be higher than his mother, and his mother would have to wear, you know, a head covering and things like that. And I just think, you know, these boys don't have much of a chance to not believe that they are the head of the house and they're better than their sisters and their mothers. Yeah. And I mean, I think a son respecting his mother, that's something that I think is really important. And that religion just destroys that relationship there. As soon as a young man is, or young child really, is baptised, where he then has this sense of being better than his mother. And I think that's really toxic to put inside a 12-year-old boy as he's going into manhood and thinking, you know, at that age he could know more than his mother. Yeah. And be better than his mother like that is, to me, is disgusting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, stepping on your own mom.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
we-
destructive.
We've had a question, so that's my job, isn't it, to interrupt with questions?
Yes, please do.
All right,
Go
so we've got Ray of Light who said he'd like to hear more about identities of women being defined by their position, marital status. There we go. Thank you. And any expectations that you share, the ideals of husband or partners.
Mm.
How did
You
we
know
feel
what?
about that?
It's one thing because I'll just say it quickly and then you guys can go further because you've been married or are married or whatever.
Not all,
As
but
someone, oh, no, yeah, most, is that when you're not a pioneer, when you're not married and you're not from a family in the truth, you're nothing if you're a woman in the congregation.
Yep.
I was nothing.
yeah.
So
There's definitely a
you
hierarchy
can't
there.
work towards anything. You're just there, like one of the seats in the kingdom hall.
Well,
Yep.
Michelle, that's the worst,
my
isn't it? What you started with is the worst possible position, right? Like, I think that
Yeah.
you're right. I think that without a man and without that sort of, whether that's a father or whatever else, you are sort of like the bottom
And
of the
so
food
there's
chain in that
So
environment.
much of the inner workings that I had no idea about, and that like a guy friend would later be like, "Oh, this blah blah blah," and I'm like, "What?" And yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
I agree with what you're saying, Michelle. It definitely is. I had 5 years out of home, serving where the need was greater, before Sasha and I got married, and I'd sort of learned to make my own decisions, as much as making your own decisions in that religion, but
Limited.
limited, yes. But there was a fear that if you, I don't know what age it would have been, but certainly by the time you got 30, if you were still the single pioneer and left on the shelf, you are no longer desirable.
a viable option.
You are now pitiable, right?
Yes.
And
you
imagine
are
that, like,
deserving.
if you're not a pioneer.
Well, yeah,
Even more,
right.
yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah.
To be a single one,
But yeah.
a single woman, more so than a single man, a single
Yeah.
woman in the congregation is pitiable, and is put into the same basket of widows
And
and
single parents.
single parents.
Yeah, they're on the bottom too. It's disgusting.
That is.
Especially
A single
moms.
man never has that. A single
No.
man never gets that.
He just
ever.
has to have a pulse to be at the top.
Well, I remember hearing a stat that
A
it was
penis.
4 women, 4 women,
Is that a pulse?
4 women to 1 man in the religion. I don't know
Yeah.
if that still stands, but that would make sense in my experience of it. So that's a lot of the population feeling like that. In that case, because the options are limited. Let's
Yeah.
just say, yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Well, with me,
Yeah.
I felt like I was wearing a scarlet letter when I separated from my husband.
Yeah.
You know, and I was not disfellowship for doing that. But they put me in a judicial hearing, and they're trying to make me confess to immorality or something. My husband said, just tell me the truth and I will forgive you. And like there were 4 men in there, and they were saying it's just a meeting, but it's a hearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and after that, because I have my right to separate from him based on scriptural reasons, but yet after that, I was treated like I was wearing a scarlet letter, and it
Yeah.
put up my children, all of them. You know.
Yep.
I guess my experience as a mother and a wife, I went into it a bit last week. My husband, I guess, he didn't particularly aspire to be an elder or a minister or a servant, for the fact that his dad had done that and given everything to. He was a wonderful father, but the time that he had to give to that meant he didn't have time for like my husband. So that's something that he didn't aspire to. He did get actually asked to be a ministerial servant at one stage, and he turned it down, which is quite unusual. But he just said, I know what it's like. And we had just had our second child, and he'd been diagnosed with autism as well. So he knocked that back. So my experience, I think, might be a little bit different, because headship and all that sort of thing was never an issue and isn't in our marriage, because we always just respected each other, and he treated me like an equal. And he's always said that headship thing is quite uncomfortable for him. And I think just going through what he did with his dad and wanting his dad's time, like just to play one game of golf with him, that really turned him off wanting any of that. But there's definitely pressure there for your husband to be, you know, what is it, reaching out or something like that.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
You know, yeah, and then you're meant to be the wife that comes along, and your kids are sitting still at the meeting, and you're out witnessing every week, and you're exhausted.
Yes.
So the pressure's absolutely there, 100%. So I can imagine it's like a pressure cooker if your husband is an elder or an MS or has any kind of, you know, authority in the congregation. It must be terrible.
Absolutely. I knew that I was making it really difficult for Sasha 2013, 2014, while I was doing my university diploma.
Oh, no.
We didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. Sasha knew, and he was very supportive of me getting an education, but we knew we couldn't tell anyone in the congregation. And trying to...
It will be stumbled.
Oh, yes. Can't do that now. So trying to work full time when I had a 3-hour commute Monday to Friday, and trying to do this university diploma, which was a 2-year course, and trying to be a witness. God, something had to give. And what ended up giving was actually meeting attendance. My midweek attendance was just absolutely shocking. And that's not great when your husband's a ministerial servant. So Sasha, he got the questions. He got the, oh, where's Sherry tonight? She must be sick, because there's no other reason you would miss a meeting. And Sasha would just say, oh, no, Sherry's doing great. She's, she's working really hard, helping people with cancer. I'm so proud of her. And because he spoke of it so positively, they had nowhere to go. But the elders then started to question him, of course. Yeah, because, hang on, you don't have your wife in line if she's not going to meetings, and you are supporting that. So when it came out, well, that's it. Well, they didn't know that at that point, but when they found out that that's what was happening and that I had gotten a diploma, then it was in, they didn't say anything to me, of course, nothing to me, but he's in the back room getting told that he doesn't have his wife in line because he let me get an education.
That is
I did
horrible.
university as well, and we had to keep it quiet. I remember I told a Pioneer sister, because I was quite excited. I did, and I was just doing it online. I just did a postgraduate certificate, and I told her I was doing it, and I was talking about it, and she said, oh, well, if you want to put something in front of Jehovah, then that's your business. And so I never said another word to anybody after that. But it's interesting. One of the elders' daughters did university, and they kept it so hush. It was actually quite disgusting what happened. And then I think the pressure got to her, and she transferred to online, because she said that she just couldn't stand it, because it was so disgusting going to university and seeing how terrible people were, how immoral they were. But she still continued on, because she actually got a scholarship and accepted it. Yeah. It was a really interesting dynamic, and nothing happened to him as an elder, but they were the top dogs in the congregation. It's interesting how it all unravels.
There's some cognitive dissonance going on in there.
Yeah, exactly. Just a note, Kate is actually watching, although she's getting her internet fixed, but she did say that, there you go, she was a solo mother, and she married out of the truth and then divorced. So really, that kept the spiritual, I like that that's in inverted commas, quite right, Kate, brothers away, which, I mean, is a blessing only in retrospect, but I think at the time does make you feel, like that second class citizen.
Oh, yeah.
I used to be terrified of being forced into a marriage, and that the husband would be one of those horrible super headship oriented brothers. Like, I was terrified of getting married for that reason.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. You know what, Michelle? That's what, in many ways. Oh, actually, let's just get to this question here. Why are single women looked down upon?
Well, I did refer to it earlier in a joke, but it is kind of true.
Hey, stop kicking me.
We don't have a penis. No, honestly, but it does come. We're not. I suppose it's just part
We
of.
exist for men.
Well, yeah, our purpose is to be a complement, right? So I'd never heard of or realised what complementarianism is, but Jehovah's Witnesses are complementarian. They believe that women are there to complement the men. They somehow think that that is dignifying, that you are there as a helper and you complement the man, but you are only ever subservient. You are never an equal, ever. And so because of that, your position in the congregation, your position in the organisation is always less than, always, full stop. And if you want more than that, there's something wrong with you. You are worldly. You are Jezebel. You are allowing a worldly influence on you. You think you're better than. Clearly, you don't have humility, and that is something you need to work on, sister.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, I think, and I'm just going to take us off in a slightly different direction. But so I was brought up in that environment as well, but obviously I knew I was gay, right, or something wasn't quite right, because I never. So the idea of playing second fiddle to a man is even more unappealing, right? So it's not even like there's any good thing in it for me. So it was very easy. I was just never going to get married, and that was my answer to that. But what I found in retrospect is, having left that religion, even when I partnered with a woman, I felt that. So if you can possibly, it did not feel natural for me to go straight into an equal relationship with a woman. I just brought that feeling into that relationship. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not explaining that
so
very well.
It's not context specific.
No, not for me.
Just a woman and a man. Yeah, you're saying, and I think I feel that in different situations.
We've been taught to people please, and that's something we've got to undo as well. And relationships in life. Yeah.
A weird realization that I did not notice at the time, but has just sort of occurred to you over the years, I guess.
I mean, yes, single ladies inside the Jadavs are like cursed for being single. They couldn't find brothers to marry. There aren't enough brothers in the congregation. Yeah, so
and the brothers know they've got a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You hear all these awful stories of women being led along, and like the guys have a great time, just choosing, and the women know there's probably one guy to 4 girls. And it's really sad, because they're such beautiful, strong women, and some of them aren't going to get married, and they probably really want to, but there's just not enough brothers. And then the criteria for a brother, I mean, good grief. Like, does he go witnessing? Is he an MS? Does he come from a good family, regular meeting attendance? Nothing like, are you compatible?
No.
Do you think you love each other?
No.
Well, you remember that, Kathy, the checklist in the Young People Ask book.
I obviously didn't follow it.
Oh my God! Well, I stupidly did. Sasha and I
good guy anyway.
We've got a little bit of a history. It was 5 years, yada yada yada. But I actually wrote a pros and cons list.
Did you?
That I still have to today somewhere.
I mean, everyone should do that.
Bring it out.
But I did. I wrote a pros and cons list, but based it on the flipping family book and the YPA book. And yes, you were a Bethelite, and that kind of helped. But
get the background.
Oh my God, it was just.
I've had experience.
Wait. What about that question that just disappeared? Sorry, there was a question about how do you talk to people when they're like, here we go.
Yes.
Thank you.
How do you respond to
I like to point out that how witnesses view people are either as wicked or potential. There's no in between.
Do you know they wish that you were dead?
Yep.
Yeah, they actually pray for your destruction.
Yes.
Oh God.
That they're a
Yeah,
millennialist
either-
religion. They believe Armageddon is coming, and that will vindicate God, and that everyone on Earth except for them will be destroyed. And they're nice
can't
to you.
wait.
Yeah, they're nice to
Yeah.
you because
To
they
convert
want you to become one of them, so that you'll survive Armageddon as well. And if not that, they got designs on your house.
Yeah.
They
I
have
just
hidden
felt people
motives.
do their research. And
And I think it's even. Oh, sorry.
No, you go, Michelle.
I think it's even like it's not even necessarily that they want you to save Armageddon half the time, survive through Armageddon half the time. It's that, look, I've got to study. Look, my study's coming to meaning. Look, my study's getting baptized. Oh, but it wasn't me. It was Jehovah. I just helped.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah. Also, I think they're
Yeah.
just not allowed to not be nice and lovely. Like,
Yeah.
you're not really allowed to do anything. It's just
That's
like
true.
it's like a
Mhm.
drug, isn't it? You're just that's how you have to be all the time. So there's how authentic it is questionable.
That's a really good point, Naomi. Like I think
Yeah.
sometimes like I'm always nice. Not that I don't want to be, but like I think you're so programmed in the congregation that there's people that you know that you should not be nice to, but you're nice to them anyway. There was one man in our congregation that used to always come right up to your face, look down your top and things like that. And he used to do that. He used to hassle us from when we were children. And it got one Memorial night, he came up to me at the door and did it. And I ended up saying to him, listen, mate, I said, that here is my space. Don't come into it. There's your space. I said, don't ever do that again. And he never did. But you got to be nice to all these people. Whereas when you leave, you start realizing I don't have to be nice to people that, my instincts are saying not to be, or they're not nice people. You know, I want to be respectful to everybody, but I don't have to be friends with everybody. And that's a new concept to get your head around. That niceness.
I'm learning that.
So hard to turn it off, isn't it? Sort of becomes part of your personality.
It's like
in
a
some
default.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not to say
Right.
we're not nice people. I guess it's hard to articulate it, but it's just that default. I'm nice to everyone, even though they're not doing horrible things to me. I'm just like being nice, where you've got to start standing up for yourself and just saying what your boundaries are.
Yeah, and also that word to not stumble anybody, especially those outside the organization, because they might get turned off from joining. So we don't want to be a bad PR for the organization.
You don't want to bring
Yeah.
reproach.
Reproach.
No. Be
no.
nice.
Yeah. But Karenza,
I
I think
used
you're
to-
right there. I think Karenza's right. Yeah, thanks. Do you think it's fair to describe the JW August promoting global genocide and making parallels to the Holocaust? Absolutely.
Of course.
So if you're confronted with someone that says, "Oh, but they're really nice people," are you familiar with their teachings? Do you know what they actually teach? And if they give you that opening, then you can say, well, they actually believe that there will be a global genocide. Think Holocaust and multiply it by a factor of 7 billion
Like
people.
Jehovah is Thanos from the Avengers.
Yes,
Like, he's gonna-
exactly.
and nobody likes
Endgame.
him.
That's right.
I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses actually really want to think about that teaching. Like
No,
I think
they
it was
focus on the
something
paradise.
that I don't know if it's just my mind, but I would think about that and think, oh my God, imagine like what is this picture of Armageddon and then a bowl of fruit? Like what about the in between that you're not telling me? Hello,
Yeah.
like that always played on my mind with those pictures. It was just like terror, pandas, peaches, oranges, grapes, like what happened in between? Like who, and then we even had one of the governing body members give a talk about burial teams. Like, hello, is anyone computing how horrific this is? Like, and how long it would take to do that, and those sorts of things just play in my mind. So, but I don't think most Jehovah's Witnesses want to think about that.
No,
When I
it'll be magically taken care of, Kathy. Somehow it'll just be magically taken care of. Or, if we have to do the cleanup work, well, Jehovah will just make it in a way that we won't suffer any trauma through it, because former pain will have been passed away and every tear will have been wiped from our eyes. God, I can't believe that language is still in there.
Yeah. But I used to think,
Do you know
well,
what's
I'll
occurring
have
to me
my
right
children.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to think I'll have my children, what, I'm going to be burying some babies or something? Like, it's
Oh.
just disgusting.
Mhm.
And I just say to my mum, like, why don't you see that part of it? Like, what part of that are you not getting? But-
It's just occurred to me right now is that it's all this whole prophecy that, you know, the wicked's going to be destroyed and it's going to be the majority of the earth,
Mhm.
and only a small few will make it. Like, what's the point of preaching? Because we're not going to convert everyone. And it's just occurring to me now. I haven't got a full thought, but it's just like we're waiting for a genocide. Like, well, they are.
Michelle,
We were.
You're right. You're right. And if you take that thought a little bit further, one of the things that they would say about why is it being so long, they'd whip out 2 Peter, whatchamacallit, that God is not impatient. Or God is patient because he does not desire any to be destroyed, but he desires all to attain to everlasting life. Okay, let's actually think that one through. No, but think it through. Because you look at then the rate of the Jehovah's Witness growth versus the population rate. Right? How quickly do we populate on the planet than Jehovah's Witnesses recruit? And when you actually do that analysis, Jehovah is waiting so that more people can actually be killed, because more people are actually coming onto the earth through procreation, what have you, versus growth in his own organization. So, sorry.
And wouldn't it be better that we didn't like pass the message on and just let people die and be resurrected?
But it keeps the JWs on the treadmill because they want their salvation as well. And I used to always think, you know, why are we preaching? Is it because we want to be there or we want other people to be there? You get all those messages. If you don't go out, you're blood guilty.
Yeah.
If you are going out, are you doing it because you want to be there and you really don't care about the people at the door? Because you know, shake the dust off your feet and move on. Like it's just this really screwed up dichotomy that I don't know, maybe it was just my head that just processes that way, but it used to just do my head in. Just
Well, anybody had the experience of wishing non-J-dubs to die in Armageddon if they don't listen to the message? No? Or
I
we have
actually,
that
you know, what's
mentality in
messed
the
up is
Philippines.
I used to think like it's good if we have natural disasters because then more people will die and be resurrected. Like, how messed up is that?
Those thoughts.
Ugh.
Yeah.
A
little bit psychopathic.
I'm ashamed to say that during the years that I pioneered, I had drunk the Kool-Aid. I totally believed it, and I felt that Jehovah had to express his sovereignty, and that in order to do that, let the people know I am Jehovah, and that meant what it meant. I'm ashamed of that now. When Sasha, the weekend that Sasha was exposed as an apostate, and we're trying to talk about what is it that he doesn't believe in anymore, and one of the things that he raised was Armageddon. He said, I don't understand why a 2-year-old has to die because their parents didn't take a Watchtower magazine. And you know what I said to him? I went, that sounds juvenile and like something a 16-year-old would say. I said that because I had not thought about it at all. I hadn't thought about it. What you said earlier, Kathy, about the witnesses not really thinking about what it means. You go from Armageddon to bowls of fruit. That's what I was like. I was like, I had not actually thought what it meant. And so when Sasha confronted me with his feelings on it, I thought it was so foreign to me because I hadn't done that equation at all.
And people process things differently, like in different types of personalities. And I don't think you should be hard on yourself. Like, I mean, even though I felt like it was awful and I didn't want anyone to die, and I actually didn't think it was right, I still stayed for 44 years as well. Like, I never made that connection to take that next step. So, like, I don't think anyone should be hard on themselves. We're fully indoctrinated with all different types of personalities that process things differently.
Also, I think Yeah, I think on that, absolutely right, and I think on that point, it's objectifying non-Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what we live through. So
Right.
if I think about when we think about it now, we say that women are sometimes objectified by men. I mean, that if you do that and then multiply it by the rest of the population outside of the religion that we were in, that just means that I didn't personally, and so I'm with you, Sherry, I didn't see them necessarily as whole humans in the way that I was a whole human, or in the way that Jehovah's Witnesses were whole humans. Weirdly, the minute they joined the organization, I did. That's stupid, but there you go. That's the whole, like, oh, but you have a daughter and you have a wife, don't you? And that's the equivalent. They can only sort of see it through the lens of, oh, if they have a daughter, suddenly they can see women as women. And that's what we were like. We were objectifying every other person in the world other than Jehovah's Witnesses, which is what we were trained to do. I don't think,
That's a really good analogy, I think. And even when you see the videos that they, the propaganda they put out, there was one video where this guy's studying with this worldly person, and when he comes to have his study, he drives in real mad into the car park, chucks a skid. And it's just like, I've never seen these people act like that. Even the girl, with the bracelet supporting people, the way she reacts, people don't do that. Like,
No.
but it feeds into their narrative.
Yep.
It makes the Jehovah's Witnesses more scared of the world and those worldly, awful people.
Yep.
There was even a recent video where someone asked for time off from their boss, and the way the boss reacted, and then they're talking to people later saying, I got sacked. But what they've done is just gone off for 3 months anyway. And like, it's like, no, you weren't sacked. You actually abandoned your job. So your employer is actually allowed under law to terminate your services. But it's like, oh, I got sacked. But I actually didn't turn up to work for 2 friggin' months because I was out preaching. Like, it's that, but the JWs lap it up because you just have this fear of, worldly people, and that's what they're going to do, chew you up.
Persecution.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's not
so
natural.
now.
Sorry, I was just going to bring up a question that's come through from Karenessa, which is about, there we go. Thank you. I think about this a lot. Are the numbers going up or down at the moment? Oh, sorry, up or down? What's happening at the moment? Are people being drawn into being Jehovah's Witnesses at the moment, or are people leaving? Does anyone actually know?
Are leaving.
You think people are leaving?
I don't know. Naomi, you'll recall this. Sasha and I answer a lot of emails from people. And one email that I don't think I will ever forget came from a young man in the States who was gay and living with his partner. And his partner had just suffered the loss. This was right at the beginning of the pandemic, right at the beginning. His partner had lost his grandmother and was grieving the loss of his grandmother right when the witnesses got him. And it was before lockdown started. So they'd actually knocked on the door. And so his partner started a Bible study with them. And this young man reached out to us because he was terrified that he was being dragged into this religion because his partner was going all in. He'd started to attend meetings. They were being love bombed. His partner was saying to them, don't tell them who you are. We're just flatmates. We're not together. It was just terrible. It was so distressing. It was really, really distressing. Horrible. In the end, what happened was he asked me to not keep in contact with him because the elders had convinced him that he was more disturbed from emails from me than he was from the organisation.
No.
And that it was really quite distressing. But there's at least 2 who, I don't have anything to say it didn't happen, look like they went into the organisation. And it the pandemic was very much on his mind because it was right in the early days of it. He was feeling the isolation. He had the fear of what is this going to mean for the world, and it led into it. So I don't know. I think there's going to be a mix of both. There are some where they're cut off from the drip, they're cut off from the constant routine and activity of being a witness, the humdrum of it all, that they're getting a bit of space to think. But then there are others that it's a different scenario. So I suppose only time's going to tell, really.
Yeah.
And as the world gets unstable, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, take advantage of the vulnerability of people, and they're like, hey, we've got the answers. And actually the Bible said this would happen. And people don't understand the history of the religion, the false prophecies, all of that. And people are scared at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
Like I feel very fortunate. Yeah, I've got a job, like I'm vaccinated, and, you know, there's a lot of people that don't have jobs. They're really scared.
Yeah.
You know, so when someone comes along and offers them security, they jump at it.
Yeah.
And you get a immediate 100 friends. It's wonderful and all that, but I don't know. It's
I
it's
have
like
a
50-50.
quick question. Sorry, I was just wondering how many of you, like, we were all born in, right? Pretty much. Do you think that if someone came to you with the message that they had before, you would have become a witness? If someone knocked on your door and you had no idea, do you think that you would have?
I doubt it. But
Because I thought
this
about that a lot when I was a witness.
It's an impossible question to answer, though, Michelle. Like,
depends when they get you.
Yeah, it does depend when they get you. And like Sasha definitely, he does that question a lot. So he'd say, what if I was born somewhere else? What if I was born in another country and was raised a totally different religion? Like, how would I know? And would I then have converted because of the message? I don't know. I can't answer that. But
I thought about it a lot when I was a witness, that if someone had come to my door, I would just be like, go away. No, thank you.
Well, not many
like,
people
if I was,
do say that.
aside from, I don't
know,
about it more now. So it is impossible
I know what
to answer.
It is impossible. I know what I'd like to think. I'd like to think that I wouldn't. But I also am conscious that people are believing a whole load of stuff at the moment that feels a bit ridiculous. And at the same time, they're believing it. And so there must be ways in. So for example, I might not have been converted by someone coming to my door, but if a friend at work, I don't know. I don't want to be too proud to say I wouldn't have. I think if it was at the right time, if I just lost someone I loved, if something had happened big in my life and I was whatever, there's weaknesses, aren't there? And that's usually when we get, you know, I think when Jehovah's Witnesses kind of get their hooks in. So I don't know.
Yeah, if I think about when my parents came in, they just, like, my parents met, my mum's English, my father's Italian. Like, they tried living in England, they tried living in Italy. That's where I was born. They were unhappy. Immigrated to Australia. They're in a immigrant centre, got nobody, and along come the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I don't know how other people's parents came in, but I think that if my parents had stayed in Italy or stayed in the UK, we would not be witnesses, because they had their own lives, but they came here, jumped off a plane in the middle of nowhere, and someone comes along and is really nice to them. And I think they got brought into this religion by the most batshit crazy couple I've ever met. Like, even as a child, like, I knew there was something wrong with this family. Their daughter used to lock us in her bedroom and read the Bible to us as kids.
Oh my gosh.
For me, I'm not really sure. I don't know how to answer that question. Because Philippines is a very superstitious country, religious country. So who knows?
It's similar to that question of asking like, if you could go back to talk to yourself at a period of time, what would you tell yourself? I find that question just as hard to answer. I don't know what I would say to myself. I remember what I was like. Myself back then would be absolutely mortified to know myself now.
Same.
I cringe when I look back at how creepy I was when I was a J-Dub. I
Yeah.
just cringed. I don't want to be the same person all over again. No way. No. It's just sickening. Like, I feel sorry for everyone whom I judged to die in Armageddon when I was still young. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And the feeling that I was right all the time. How narcissistic that was. Yeah.
That's
Being
true.
dogmatic, convinced that you are correct and everybody else is wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, someone
Yeah.
put that comment that people need community, and cults provide that, and I would agree. So, like,
Yeah.
a really big thing that I think non-believers, whatever you want to call that, do is, you know, we don't congregate, we don't get our minds together about, you know, how we can influence government decisions.
Yes.
How, like, you know, it's less organized when you've got a free mind and you can think what you like, and so that means that some of that influence isn't there. And community, or it has to be, you have to seek it in a different way. You know, you don't just automatically get it. You actually have to work hard at it. You have to make connections. You have to give yourself time to do that. But in a cult like that, you can just walk off, show the slightest bit of interest, and it seems like they're all there, and you've got this set family.
And also Jehovah's Witnesses targets the weak people, you know, those
Vulnerable,
who are feeling
yeah.
down. Vulnerable, So
Debs was saying she would tell her younger self to have some critical thinking skills and save up for retirement. My God, yes. Yeah.
Very
I didn't know
wise.
about critical
Good advice.
thinking.
Yeah.
I
Critical
only learned
thinking.
about critical thinking when I left the Witnesses.
Absolutely. So good.
Do you remember when
I
it
think-
first came out, the new terminology of cognitive dissonance and intellectual
Oh my
dishonesty?
God.
All these
Yeah.
different languages. Like, what is that?
Yeah, same thing for me. What are those words?
Do you know, when I started university, the first article that I was asked to read, so, you know, oh, great, I'm going to, you know, start uni. I open up my first article, and it was actually on groupthink. And I remember exactly where I was sitting in the lounge room, and I read it, and I just threw it on the lounge. I'm like, oh, my goodness, this is what I'm a part of. Like, and it was talking about how you go with decisions because of the group and you're too scared to say, and it was just, my mind just went, oh my goodness, this is what I'm a part of. And it was all starting to fall apart then, but I remember just sitting back on the lounge just going, oh my goodness.
Yep.
That would have been
Shocking.
massive.
Yeah.
Kate just dropped a little comment there about where they used to go witnessing in low socioeconomic suburbs in Christchurch, where desperate ones lived and needed the truth. Absolutely, we did exactly.
I think as well, I saw a meme that said something about if you participated in missionary work, or as we would say, need grading, you've participated in colonization. Like, that's a part of it as well. That's really freaked me out since leaving.
Yeah.
True.
There was a part of during those years that I pioneered that I did feel uncomfortable, and it was when I had a Japanese pioneer move in with me, and she was trying to build a Japanese group in the congregation I was in, and that felt invasive because we would literally, okay, everybody, just take a walk down memory lane here. We're going back into the 90s where we had a thing called the white pages. And we would sit there with the white pages and literally scroll through it looking for Japanese names. And then when we found Japanese names,
wow.
at that point, that actually did feel not quite right. I'm like, this is invasive. This is not just random knocking on doors. This is targeted. It felt not right.
It's really creepy because they used to do that in the Spanish congregation I was in as well. And then the whole go out and listen for informal witnessing. So we'd often go to the malls or down Queen Street, our one street in our one tiny city, and listen for people speaking Spanish or Portuguese. And then you'd sort of sidle up and be like, oh, so blah, blah, blah. I heard that you're speaking Spanish. And it was just so awkward, especially if you're learning and you're learning this language just to try and get someone to come to a meeting. Like, it's just so creepy.
Michelle,
And
I would have
I
just
could
sat
never
in
do
a tapas bar. I would have just sat in a tapas bar and counted my hours.
I just walked around the mall and was like, okay, let's go get sushi.
Oh my god!
As you know,
Yes,
Sherry, I used
sure.
to. As you know, I used to stalk the people in the park near the university. I work at a university, and there's a park adjacent to the university, and the brothers and sisters would go there with a cart with Chinese literature, and I used to go every lunchtime and chat to them. But as part of my work, I'd done a review on students, and we'd done a lot around the Chinese students and the pressures they're under from their families to do well. And I just spoke to the people at the cart one day, and I just said to them, do you realise that, you are trying to pick out these vulnerable students? I said they're under a lot of pressure to study. And, if you introduce them to this, they may give up their studies and their families are really disappointed. I just said, you really need to have a little bit more of a duty of care with these students. Like, just because we have a high percentage of Chinese students and you wait at the bottom of the stairs for them to come down, I said, you just need to understand a little bit more why they are here, the pressures they're under, and then becoming a Jehovah's Witness, the impact that would have on them and their families.
What did they
And
say,
they hated
Kathy?
it when they saw me coming.
Oh, really? I bet. Good.
Every lunchtime.
But the University of Jehovah,
They did
Jehovah's
say that.
University gives us the degree of everlasting life.
Yeah, they said something like that to me. And I said, look, all different sorts of education are great. But I said, this is not about that. It's not about having Jehovah's education. It's about you having a little bit more care with our students. They didn't know who I was, and I had my badge on from work. But when they saw me coming, a lot of the time they packed up and went.
Perfect. Hey,
Funny story on that.
Council on them and things like that.
She would ring the school council, but funny time, you took video and sent it to me where I think it was the first time or the second time, it was really early on in the piece that you'd gone up to the cart, and she sent me the video footage, and I freaked out because I'm like, that's my auntie you're talking to.
oh my god!
I actually recognized who the witness was, and she was getting hot under the collar. She was getting
She
really
was.
hot.
She gave me what for, didn't she?
Yes, she did, and I'm like, oh my god, that's my family. Oh.
They were a
surrounded.
different set. They'd go to one side of the park, but the others would stand right at the bottom of the stairs of the university and wait for the students.
Goodness me, that's just like lying in wait, isn't it?
Very
Yeah.
That was the plan with the carts.
Yeah.
That was what they did with the carts.
Hey, so
Sorry,
we've got a question. So Kate's partner is asking this question. Do any of you feel guilty for bringing ones in after leaving?
I
I can
I
answer
never
that.
did, so
I
was
will
never
answer
good
that. I
enough.
never did. Yes, that was mine. I was so unsuccessful that
I flunked in that area.
did not do it.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I have
wasn't-
one.
You did one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a pretty poor pioneer in that I didn't convert. There were one or two that I studied with along the way, but I never had someone that I met at the door, studied with the whole way through, and then got baptized. I picked them up at various points where they'd already been studying, and then they moved or whatever. Sasha and I did have a study with one family, and the father got baptized, and baptism day was actually his last meeting. He never went to another meeting after that. So I think we're fine on that score.
I even flunked with my own children.
Well, that's true, you did.
I did.
Wow.
Well, I was
Yeah.
handing down my Bible studies after I left. So.
You were, and did you?
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, good
Just
on
to
you.
just to feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did meet one. I did meet one after leaving the Jade House, and I saw her in the library, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he was trying to run away from me because she thought I was still there. She's scared that I will preach to her. So, but I told her I love. Yeah, and she attended the meeting, and she said it's not for her, the first meeting. So
Yep.
and after that we became friends on Facebook. We even had a picture.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just seen the comment that's up there now. If I brought someone in, I'd go out of my way to wake them up. Now, I've known a few who've done that, who have made it a mission of, I now have to go to these people and tell them. Yeah, and I can understand that.
Seems like we have the obligation, since we're the ones who planted seeds of J-Dub stuffs in their heads.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen with them, so we feel bad if they end up like us, trapped inside the religion. So we have this moral obligation to help them,
Yeah.
But
it's a tough conversation to have. It's a really difficult conversation.
I can imagine.
Especially if they become really spiritual about J-Dub's matter. So
and especially when you're mentally diseased, it's really hard to maintain that sort of conversation.
I embrace my mental disease.
I get it.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the Bible study, Bible students were told not to listen to outside information, especially from us apostates. So when they see us, turning our backs on the organization, that's a red flag for them to stay away, because it was implanted into their heads at the beginning of the Bible study. So.
Yeah, well, one of the things you tell your Bible studies is, people are going to start saying things to you and your family's going to start turning on you. When you think about it, now that you've said that, it is one of the first things that you prime your Bible studies with to get them ready to start severing all those relationships. Yeah. And because you've got something so good and they can't see it and they're going to try and pull you back. It's interesting, really, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, the hooks are in straight away.
You have a request.
There we go.
This is care of
it's a zombie.
Oh, you didn't see it? Oh, there.
Yeah.
So it is a zombie. So mentally diseased, Jeremy Howell, he is next J-Dub, and he's got a YouTube channel. And he does some really fantastic videos. But the YouTube channel is called Mentally Diseased. And so, it's obviously a dig at Watchtower's language about apostates, saying that we are mentally diseased people and we are evil and we want to take you away and have followers for ourselves and all the rest of that rubbish.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, shout out to Jeremy, YouTube Mentally Diseased. It's a really good channel. I love his spin on the way he puts his videos together, and they're really punchy. He
high energy.
They are high energy, but he makes some really good points. You're like, oh yes, you nailed that one.
I love his intro music too. It's great.
Yes, I'm in my head now that you say that.
So Kate's partner's got another question for us related to this, actually. So do you think that's why they invented shunning, so that ones that have woken up won't talk newbies into leaving?
Well, Dave,
I'd say part of it.
Shunning has a bit of a history with the J-Dubs, and it's a bit of an interesting history because they didn't always shun. In fact, they condemned the Catholic Church for shunning those that had been excommunicated until 1952. And in 1952, they brought out Watchtower articles that then said that you wouldn't share a meal with ones that had been disfellowshipped or excommunicated. So
sounds like that old introduction to movies. You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't steal a car.
Yeah, right. So, that's when disfellowship ones started to be shunned. But shunning of ones who disassociated, or the risk of becoming disfellowshipped yourself for associating with someone who was disfellowshipped or disassociated, did not happen until 1981.
1981.
Yeah, 1981, and that was when a governing body member, Ray Franz, left the organisation, and the method in which he left, the organisation needed to control the damage of that leaving. And so there was quite a lot of disfellowshipping that happened right then at that point. And because he was seen to be having a meal with someone who was he disassociated.
That's his boss. Yeah.
It was his boss.
His boss
disassociated, and he was seen to be having a meal with his boss, disassociated boss, and that was it. There was a Watchtower thing.
Which was also his landlord.
Yeah. And that was it. So, you cannot from 1981, you cannot talk to anyone who is disassociated. In fact, I would hazard that disassociation is seen as slightly worse than disfellowshipping, because you are making that choice for yourself to leave the religion, whereas disfellowshipping is more likely you've sinned, unless you disfellowship for apostasy. Then all
But
bad.
then, you know, when you disassociate, you have to take on the meaning they give to it. So when I disassociated, I said to the elders, I want to formally leave this religion, but you have no options other than disassociating. And I categorically dismiss the reasons you're giving me. So when you announce it, you're lying. But they, you know, that is the only option they give you, to disassociate. They announce it, and that is a message to the congregation that you don't want to talk to them ever again, which is a lie. And there is no other
they
option.
don't even differentiate. They don't differentiate between disfellowshipping and disassociation, so that the congregation doesn't know unless you've told them a lie.
Of course, exactly. And it's also a liability issue.
Yeah, by saying
because they've got to be really careful about what they say, because if you go at them for defamation, they want to be, well, we didn't say anything. All we said is you're no longer a Jehovah's Witness, and that's true, isn't it? You're no longer a Jehovah's Witness, so we haven't done anything. They're crafty, manipulative.
Yeah. It's loaded language. It means so much to those in as opposed to those out.
Yeah.
This, and also this association means being disloyal, as compared to disfellowship ones that they are being kicked out. But with us, we are totally disloyal to the organization. So that's a more reason to hate us.
Sinned against Jehovah's Spirit.
Hopefully,
that is unforgivable.
Dave.
Let's have a look at the question. Let's have a look at the question that's up there. As women coming out of the oppressive, misogynistic, religious bubble, was it hard to actually get to know who you really are as a person?
Still in the process.
Yes, I think it is hard. And saying that, I think it's hard for anyone anyway to just know who you really are as a person. I think the thing that makes it harder is that I guess I felt as if I was a painting that other people painted, and that eventually you have to kind of get rid of that paint and see what's underneath, and then have a look at, you know, how to enhance what you've actually got. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I like that, Naomi. That's awesome.
But,
I really like that.
Yeah, so that takes, I think, time. I think, whereas I think for others, perhaps, if they weren't with this sort of bubble, maybe they're just discovering themselves without too much stuff painted on them to begin with. So that removal is I think, takes time.
You get to paint your own painting now.
Thank you. From an artist.
The colours you want.
There you go. You're choosing hot pink, Michelle, I see.
I think there's that trauma of leaving as well. Like I started my exit in 2016, 17, and I think there's probably a year that I think I cried every day. I felt so depressed. So there's the trauma you've got to go through, and then you sort of land, you do all your research, and you get your head, you know, starts exploding, and then it sort of all settles down, and then it's like, oh, so now I can know who I am, and you can make any choice you want to, and it's sort of very freeing, but it's like, oh, so what am I going to do next?
I have a question for everybody. What do you guys enjoy doing most these days?
Making controversial, inflammatory art.
Being a thorn in Watchtower's side.
Best life ever.
Best life ever, hashtag.
I think just being free to have choices, like to choose what you want to do, like without, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but Saturdays and Sundays for a long time, I just felt guilty on a Saturday and Sunday, even after I'd left. Like there's something I should be doing. I think it's just relaxing into life and not feeling bad about everything. And when things go wrong, it's not a catastrophe. It's a lesson to be learned from and to grow. I love educating myself. Like I try and learn about so many things and always be listening to podcasts and trying to educate myself, like just being open to learn about things and with no fear of repercussions or guilt or shame.
Is there an element,
Yes.
Kathy, is there an element though that in those first few years, because it'll be 5 for me in November, that like you're consuming all this information because you've got to almost justify your decision or prove to yourself that you made the right decision? That not that there's a fear that maybe you could have been wrong, but to kind of try to make sense of how crazy it all is, how crazy it is that you've got this dysfunctional thing going on and you've lost all family and contact, that you need to just constantly remind yourself by learning, by consuming information and educating yourself that this is why I did this. This is why I'm paying the cost, and having to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing is I found it really traumatic leaving. And as I said, that first year particularly, because I was the one who left. I said to my husband on our wedding anniversary, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? So I had that thing of, I felt bad, but I think I've never lost sight that I knew it was the right thing to do. It's been painful, but for me, I don't think that there's ever been a wavering that it was wrong. And I've just tried to stay on course. And when everything's falling around me and it was really stressful, I'm trying to turn up to work every day like nothing's wrong. My life's just falling apart. But I knew deep down that this was something I'd wanted to do for at least 20 years. And I was finally doing it. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But, just staying on course and just just knowing it's going to get better, but it is a huge learning curve, even just learning to learn properly.
Yes.
Gosh.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think we'll get on to answering this question in a second as well. But I just wanted to follow up on your point there, Sherry, where you were like, you went deep into the research as to like, this is why, I feel I'm about to upheaval, there's a huge upheaval in my life. This is why I'm doing it. And these are all the reasons. And I think I totally get that intellectually, but that was not my experience. So my experience was opposite. I did nothing about it for about 20 years. I did the other thing. I just lived my life. I tried to find my identity and just tried not really to think too much about it. So what am I doing here 20 years later thinking about it as if it's so fresh? And so I think people have different ways. Yeah. So it is fresh. But it's
you
just
did
funny
the flip side of it to us.
I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready to see myself as an apostate or I just wasn't ready to delve into that. And I think people will do it at different stages depending on what they're ready
I
to.
went straight for research, like straight away, and just absorbed everything I could find. And now I have absolutely no doubt I've made the right decision.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'm more newly out, I am going through the painful, traumatic stage still, but I've got that behind me to bolster me on, I guess.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of
That's the
confidence.
same thing that happened to me. Quick waking up. Yeah.
It does get better. It takes time, but it gets better and better.
It does.
Once you've ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Out.
We have a look at this.
I'm enjoying the feeling of not being suffocated in that religion.
Yeah,
we were
definitely.
So,
Yes, that's true.
I manage my life now. I'm happy being independent on my own. I learned to stand on my own, so that's a very good thing I have after leaving the J-Dubs, and I treasured it. Yeah,
absolutely.
That makes me happy.
And it must be so hard when their partner, doesn't come along with them on this journey. Like it lands differently for people. So there's a lot of different scenarios that play out, but to probably have to go out on your own, I really take my hat off to people who have to do that. It's just must be so heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
The feeling of being torn.
We've got a question here from Karanessa about the fact that there's a lot of exposure in Aussie media at the moment. We should mention that Sherry is featured in quite a few of them, which is very exciting. And that we have a Four Corners episode, don't we? Coming out on Monday here in Australia, which is a good. It's going to be, I hope, a great opportunity for us to learn more about, well, for people to learn more about Jehovah's Witnesses. But she asked a good question. What would we like the reports to dig deeper into, or better illuminate, better explain to the general public?
I would like
behaviour.
control. Yes, that's it. I don't know if Australia's ready for it yet. I don't know if, because it does bring up a lot of the questions about freedom of choice and freedom of religion. But I don't know if the general public understands the power of coercive control and how that can be weaponized in religion. And it's not just the domain of the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's much broader than that. This type of control is shown in a lot of different groups, and it doesn't even have to be religious. It could be in other formats altogether. But I may be trying to go too much deep to the source to try and, eradicate the real problem. It might be better just at this stage to do what they are currently doing, which is picking out the elements that are harmful and damaging. And I'm hopeful that if we can continue to raise awareness about organisations like the Jehovah's Witnesses and how harmful they are, that we can start to then have conversation about the harms. What are those harms? What is religious trauma? What is coercive control? Is it right to indoctrinate children? Right? Because that happens across the board, across all religions, where children are robbed of their own choice. They are told what to believe, and that's wrong in any religion. So I'm hopeful that by raising the profile or the platform of talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses, that we can get people to think about these questions, start having these conversations, start having dialogue, and start thinking about what we want to tolerate as a society or not. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm not sure what the lens is they're going to have on this program. Yeah. I mean, I spoke to one of the producers, just had a little bit of exposure with it, and a lot of the information I sent her was about children and how there is this public rhetoric that, of course, you have a choice and this kind of thing. So I sent her a lot of information around, even the Bible storybook, and I tagged all the pictures, sort of like, my first murder when I'm 4, my first rape, all those others. She was horrified at what children were being exposed to at such a young age. And when I disassociated from the religion, I was speaking to the elders, I showed them the pictures from the Bible storybook, and they openly said to me, there's nothing wrong with those pictures. So, I mean, I would love for that exposure of the public rhetoric versus what actually does happen. And I think one of the most disgusting things is being born in and indoctrinated and then being told that you had some kind of a choice. I mean, what 13 or even 18-year-old knows that once they get baptized, they're just now they're coffin shut. They don't know. And if I got told when I was doing the questions, oh, by the way, if you change your mind, that you'll never speak to your parents again, I would never have got baptized. But they're not going to say that to you. No. When really that is the reality of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'd like to see more controls in place I'd like to see governments be more responsible towards protecting or being more responsive to harms caused by religion. I have a really big problem with religions getting charity status and tax exemption.
Oh my God, that was going to be my one. How they can so that would be my that would be where I'd want to go with it. I don't understand the tax-free aspect.
And there's no accountability. There's no accountability. I don't. That's what I don't understand. I don't understand how in Australia we have legislation for employment. We have fair work. We have national employment standards. We've got work health safety legislation, right? That protects both the employer and the employee. And if the employee has a complaint, they have recourse. They have a way that they can go to various bodies to lodge their complaint and have some redress. Why is there no way of someone who is a member of a religious organization to be able to have recourse to address a complaint. And they
or
get taken.
resign.
I
Or
don't.
resign and leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. With no repercussions.
No. Yep. I know. It's crazy. But yeah, it is what it is.
It is
I
what
don't-
it is now. But
It
I
is.
want to fight that. I want to fight that, Naomi. And I hope that we can get to a stage where we can raise these questions at a platform that we make lawmakers and policymakers accountable. Tell us
Absolutely.
what can we do? The Australian Charity Commission. Okay, there needs to be a charity commission for actual charities that do good work,
Yeah.
right? But for these religious organizations that are not doing good work, going door to door preaching to people about your religion is not charitable.
Yeah.
It just
No.
isn't.
Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
I
I don't know if we have time for one more question, but there is a question from Facebook. I don't know if we can get that one up. There we go. So, do we feel like we're having emotional withdrawal symptoms from completely breaking away from the whole Jehovah's Witness routine and being cut off from friends and family in the Jehovah's Witness bubble?
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
When you go, especially when you go cold turkey, it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, especially
it's-
being withdrawn from your family, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating, and it's disgusting that they hold your family to ransom. I think that's the worst thing, is being cut off from family. It's wrong to take people's families away from them.
Yep.
Forever.
I think the other harm that is, I don't think we know the full extent of how harmful this part is. And that's that after you've done the mental stuff and you've worked out this is not true, you still have to navigate relationships, right? And so you're walking this impossible situation where you're trying to still maintain relationships while being true to yourself and feeling so conflicted over that because you now feel so totally different from what you were trained and indoctrinated to believe. I mean, that's got to do a number on your mental health just on its own.
Yeah.
Kathy, you said earlier that you're careful about how you do things within your family because you don't want to create any issues with other family members, right?
Yeah.
That puts a strain on you in order to do that, and it is actually limiting you. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have to
For me,
protect
the-
other people. Yeah,
yeah,
The feeling of starting all over again, that's just so
Yeah.
hard.
yeah, overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and
you
I
never
still
ever
No
struggle to
have
make
support
friends.
system. It's so
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I'll never
Mhm.
find friends. I'll be alone, and it's a really devastating place to be. And
Yeah.
but it does get better. It's really, really hard, but it gets better. And there's so many,
Yeah.
forums and things like that now. And I think with the whole legislation and charity status, all of that's going to take a long time. But having things like RFR is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's places to land now.
yeah, and you do need that support. I would also recommend that you go get therapy because that, as soon as you've been destabilized by having
Definitely.
lost your identity in effect and you've got to rebuild, you absolutely need to have
Yeah.
therapy to kind of work your way through that. So therapy and
Completely.
peer support, that's really
Well,
the
because they're called withdrawals for reasons. Like you miss getting this hit of love or these things.
Mhm.
So I do understand that idea that welcome back, Michelle. I mean, we missed you. I don't know what happened. But
I don't know what happened. It just disappeared.
This idea that what naturally happens, I think, is if you're not getting those injections, you find other ways.
yeah.
And so that rhetoric you get in the religion of if you leave, you're going to go off the rails. Well, sometimes that was true because who can find a way of living like this in a kind of cut off state without potentially looking at quick hits to bring you that pleasure? So it's like they create the situation, then they're like, look what happens. They're like, yes, look what happens when someone is
That's
completely
so cruel.
isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They throw the grenade and then
Yeah.
they turn around and go, oh,
Oh, look how it exploded. Yeah, it's incredible.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I just want to mention Kate's
Surprise.
Kate's sharing some comments as well about
Yes.
how it's been for you, Kate. So just, that link to your parents, I think, is a really big loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
And then it's
and what
hard
that means.
to,
Yeah,
how do you
for grand-
explain that to your kids?
Messed up.
Yes.
It's not an uncommon one.
The ramifications, like, I mean, with me leaving, like, my kids, they can talk to my parents if they want to, but they've chosen not to now because they don't want to hurt me. It's just an awful situation all round.
Mm.
And I've always said to them, just because I've left, like, I don't want you to stop talking to people that aren't talking to me, like they're doing it for a reason, but I've let them make their own decisions. And you know, they've kind of cut off people too because they're like, I don't like how you're treated, Mum. Everyone's put in a really terrible situation where nobody wins.
That's
Just
right.
because you want to live your life and because you disagree with a bunch of men. Like, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
That's what
I've recently taken
disagree with
the
the
view.
penises.
Are you sure you're not having a drink there, Kathy? I don't know.
I've recently taken the view that I want to flip the stereotype. I've been thinking about the word apostasy and how we can reframe that and not give it such loaded language, and how we can also take the power back a bit. They say they're shunning me because I've become wicked and evil. But I say, no, you know what? I choose to shun you because you're supporting a wicked and evil organization. I actually don't want to have you in my life if you're going to do that, because the problem is not with me. The problem is with you. You want to defend that organization. I don't really want anything to do with you then. When you have woken up and realized what they're doing and how harmful they are, then we can have a conversation and I'll be there to support you and help you as much as I can. But until then, I don't want you. That's my current feeling.
Good for you, Sherry.
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah, and it's really a pain in the ass whenever I hear Jada saying that even though if they find out the truth, they will still stick to their religion because their family is in the
Yeah.
Oh, so many are
It's,
there, I think, for that.
Yeah, shaking my head with that reasoning. It doesn't make sense.
But that's where they're at this point. And it takes time to get the strength to go where the reasons for I can't do this anymore outweigh the reasons for I have to stay. It just, while I just said what I said and went off my tree a bit, I also have to. No, I'm not actually. I'm on ginger ale.
I'm joking.
But I also want to just appreciate that it took me. I mean, Sasha was awake for how many years before me, and it took me how long to come out of this? And then we stopped attending meetings in June 2015, but I still believed. And I didn't really wake up until November 2016 after I read the Royal Commission reports. It's a long amount of time. So I need to also bear in mind that sometimes you have to have a little bit of patience. I'm trying not to be that dogmatic thing, we talked about earlier.
It is hard, though.
It's really hard to navigate.
Don't rush it. I just think it just takes the time it takes.
Take time.
And I think, too, the other thing that, they want to call us angry apostates. Well, guess what? We're angry because you took our families away. We have every right to be angry. So if I'm angry, yes, I'll wear that because you've hijacked my family. That's not a little thing. You've taken my whole social structure, my everything away, and then they point the finger and go, oh, look how angry they are. Duh.
Yeah.
And
what you've done is wicked.
Exactly. They've taken family away and given repercussions, but you've also painted the narrative and made me out to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
You've painted me out and made me out to be some vicious, evil, wicked person that just wants to draw people away and corrupt other people's faith. You've painted that narrative for me when that is not who I am. I just want to help people and care for people and let people explore and be themselves and accept them without judgment. That's who I am. But you've taken away that story and painted me into something else so that my family then don't want to have anything to do with me.
I actually wrote to Bethel and the elders this week and said to them, it's Are You Okay Day? And were they going to...
You are hilarious.
Isn't she awesome? I love you, Kathy. You're so cool.
I can't help it. They
Grab
make me so bad. And I
Love
just
it.
said, would they be checking in on people who they've estranged from their families, particularly during a pandemic? And if they couldn't be bothered doing that, would they be checking in on their own congregants who are being forced to ignore their families because it's not okay?
Oh,
And I
Kathy,
sent them the
that's
picture of the
amazing.
Are You OK logo and the picture of the mother putting the phone down next to it.
You're
Oh
so
my
good.
God.
Honestly,
I love where
Kathy,
you're going with this. But
awesome.
Sherry, in an effort to do both, I've done both. So when my dad was shunning me, he wouldn't speak to me, but my mum had always insisted, because three out of four of us had left, that we say hello to him even if he wouldn't respond. So, but I stopped doing that. So I just was like, I'm not going to say hello to someone who I know won't respond back to me. It's really insulting and demeaning, and I don't feel I have any power in that situation. So I stopped saying, yep, just stop saying it. And on
There's
the
a big
flip side-
difference between not talking to someone because like 8 men are telling you not to, and yourself putting up a boundary. A huge difference.
Exactly. Oh my
Yeah.
God, absolutely, Michelle. So that was the boundary.
Mhm.
But listen to this, listen to my inconsistency over time. In other ways, if I saw Jehovah's Witnesses that I knew, I would say hello. Hey, how's it going? Da da da. Because to me, that was not a problem for me. I knew that they weren't supposed to talk to me, but I am not supposed to talk to them. That rule doesn't
Right.
apply to me.
Right.
So I can speak to whoever I want. If they don't want
Yeah.
to respond, or if they don't want to, if that makes them uncomfortable, that's not my problem. So it's like I don't know anymore. Like one of those two things works for me. Either
Yeah.
shun them as well, or not shun them. I don't know.
Yes,
One of those
yes,
two.
somehow to mix
One's
between.
a boundary, and the other one's your personality. You're not the type of person
Yeah.
that's going
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
But the
I
other
have to
one's
share
sort of a
with-
boundary.
I have to
sometimes
share
I
with
have
you.
those-
Go on, go Stella, go Stella.
Oh, I was going to say, I sometimes I like to be naughty. So, I mean, whenever I see my old friends in the congregation,
That's
and I will bump into them and say hi to them, and they will start running away from me. How
Yeah.
silly is that?
Not come across anyone since I left, and at
Wait
first it
till
was
you
this
do.
big
You'll love
scary
it.
thing, and I'm
You'll
like,
get it.
now I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Where are they?
It will happen. It will happen. That's what I was going to say too, Stella. I now delight in being
Yeah.
able to see
Yeah.
someone and make them feel awkward.
Yeah.
Just before this most recent lockdown, I went to go and get my nails done, and as I came out of the nail salon, I saw an elder walking straight towards me. And you know, you have that moment where you both lock eyes, right? He's seen me, I've seen him. There's not a damn thing we can do about it. And my immediate response was go, "Hi, Tony." and his reaction was he smiled.
Yeah.
And then it was hilarious, so funny. Then he got pissed off with himself for smiling at me, and so his body language, like he's walking along with a bag, and then there was this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be carried away with my gestures, but yes, there was this very emphatic of I wasn't supposed to do that. And I just-
Yeah.
I just
Not your
started
problem.
laughing. I thought it was fantastic.
That is
That happened to
priceless.
me the other day. There was two people that I knew, really uber dubs, with their heads in the back of their boot of their car, and I was coming out of the park, and I'm like, oh yes. So I'm like, good morning, ladies, and they turn around, they're like, good morning, and then they're like, oh, you know, like, stop. And I just, as I walk past, I'm like, see you later.
Turn the tables on them.
Yeah.
I have 14 Jehovah's Witnesses in my street, so I've had to
Oh,
toughen
wow.
up. I have to toughen up.
Wow.
And they love to shun. They love it. So I just do the opposite.
All
Yeah.
right.
This has been awesome, ladies. I've
Yes.
loved it again.
Mhm.
Thank you to everyone who's joined
Thank
us
you.
as
Do we
well.
have to wrap it up now?
Yeah. I just
Uh-huh.
see that someone has asked about the Four Corners program. So I might see if I can get a quick link up so we can drop that out there. Sherry, where did you actually have it? Here.
So we should be
So
able to
that-
watch it on the website, correct? Is that right?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I think so, but I'm not entirely
Probably.
sure. But I'm sure
think
that we'll
so.
have ways of getting it out there as soon as we can.
Once
But
it's, yeah,
We'll make sure
broadcast.
we'll put it in the description box, and we will pin
Yeah.
it
Put it
in the
okay.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll
there's
do it.
I don't know.
Thank you.
This person
There.
has put this
Uh-huh.
newspaper article all the way in her thread. Oh, there it is. There we are. Yes, copy. Shane, I'm just going to drop it into the private chat if you can work your wonders with that.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
guys.
Yeah. Thank you so
ladies.
much.
Yeah, Kate.
And I'm just gonna say we will be back in 2 weeks to address the questions that we got. Yep. So don't worry, ladies out there. We will get back to your questions and we'll address them in 2 weeks' time. We'll be back.
Excellent.
Do you have any parting words, ladies? Any parting words?
Be wonderful, everybody.
Yes. I'm with
Watch
that.
Four Corners. It's going to be
Join
awesome.
another cult.
And join the ranks of the mentally diseased.
Yeah.
Be proud. Yeah,
Do
be
that.
proud. So, so we would like to
you.
thank everyone who is out there,
Thank you.
once giving comments, who are present in the live stream. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and we'll see
Thank
you in
you.
2 weeks' time. Thank you,
you.
and we'll say goodbye.
Bye,
See you.
everyone.
Bye bye.